Welcome to Prime. I'm Fundo Mabalani. Leading our bulletin, the Independent Schools Matric class of 2017 has done it again. The proud matriculants managed to achieve an overall matric pass rate of 98.76%, up from the 98.67 attained in 2016. This year saw just over 12,000 pupils sitting for their exams. Of this, 88.50% obtained bachelor passes, while 8.9% attained diploma entry and only 1.30% managed a higher certificate pass.
13 years of schooling has finally paid off for just over 12,000 matriculants that sat for the exams in 2017. For top achievers, this is just the beginning of a new journey.
I thought it was very hard work. I try to work as consistently as possible, but obviously with matric, I played a lot of sport as well. It's hard to manage your time. So sometimes it was some last-minute studying, but I try to keep it consistent the whole way through.
Okay, well, to start off, I got 2 distinctions for business studies and isiZulu. And sadly, I fell short with accounting, so I got 79.
Proud parents also could not hide their excitement as they tell of the sacrifices they had to make to support their children.
It has been a sacrifice. Long hours at the sports fields, long hours preparing, assisting with homeworks. And it has been a journey, like sitting in the traffic in the morning. And it has put a hold on my career as well as a mom, because I had to be there full time for him.
She's really worked hard and she really deserves it. So we're very proud as parents of her. She set very high goals for herself, and through the years she achieved very well against what she set herself out to. So yeah, we were expecting good results, but it's still awesome to get it in the end.
Chief Executive Officer of the Independent Examination Board also emphasizes that support from the schools and parents is crucial to the learners' success.
First of all, I think we must extend all our congratulations to the learners. Quite honestly, the IEB doesn't do anything about achieving the results. That happens entirely at the school level. I always talk about the tripod of success, and that is the learner who wants to learn and wants to do well, the teachers who support and encourage, unpack the curriculum for the learners so that they can understand fully and achieve at the best level that's possible for them. And then, of course, the importance of the home, the parental support, encouragement and guidance that helps these learners achieve.
The conversation in St. David's Mary's Inanda School is not about whether you passed or you failed, but it's about how many distinctions. And with 100% pass rates, the students are giving full credit to their hard-working teachers before they step into the real world, into their preferred universities. This is Kelton Omofein in 7, St. David's Mary's Inanda, Sandton.
Now joining us on the story is Chris Malemache from Sanko. He's the Gauteng Provincial Chairperson. Chris, a warm welcome to you. Impressive results there by the independent schools. I mean, 98.76% is quite great. Your take as Sanko?
Thank you very much, Fundo, and the viewers at home. Let me take this opportunity to congratulate all the learners of 2017. Say, well done. I think from where we are seated at the Civic Movement, we are very proud of both learners, teachers, and every institute that has contributed positively to ensure that in South Africa, regardless of whether private or public, the education is taking a very good dive, is going up. We are very happy and very impressed with the result that instead of dropping, it shows the element, not necessarily the element, is going up. That encourages us as a community to show that community as a whole, through parents, we are now supporting the good cause.
But in as much as we say we need to congratulate the students, it's not really much of a concern whether it's independent or public. But the conversation has now started that should we expect the same results in the public schooling system come Friday?
From where I'm standing, I don't want to preempt and ever lie to say I don't think we are going to get negative results tomorrow. Where I'm standing, I'm fully convinced that if learners can do it in a private sector, nothing stops learners to do it in a public school. The current public school situation, it is clear that the the Minister of Education is really serious about the schools. If you check what Panyaza Lesotho in our own province is doing to these old schools, what makes a learner not to pass? If the learner is getting near the same experience parameters that is getting from the private, why can't this learner from the very same public do the same? So you and Ms. here, I want to assure that is going to increase. It's not going to decrease even tomorrow from the public school. No. I think the other thing that I must take this opportunity to emphasize, the only thing which is lacking in the public school is for the department to just ensure that teachers get decent salaries so that they're getting motivated, so that at the end of the day, they don't just do it for the sake of salary, they do it being motivated.
No, an interesting take there about remuneration for teachers. But let's just draw in Hendrik Makinita, education activist, into this conversation. Mr. Makinita, warm welcome to you. Now, you're specifically somebody who has come hard against the progression policy in terms of matrics being progressed after failing twice. Talk to us about your position on progression of students.
Yeah, we believe that, the progression policy of government is creating lazy learners to start with, and this is a policy that we believe should be done away with at some point, because the policy of progression, for instance, makes it a point that a learner is taken to the next grade even though he or she has failed. For example, a learner is not allowed to fail a phase more than once. In other words, a phase in this case, if we look at the senior phase, it's grade 7, 8, and 9. That is the senior phase. So a learner may fail only one grade there, or may fail only one. So that is the problem that we have. And we think that this result that will be announced tomorrow will not necessarily be a true reflection of what the performance of learners is generally, because of also learners who are being modulated. When we speak of modulation, we're talking about learners who do matric in 2 years, for instance. They take 3 subjects this year, and the following year they take 3 or 4 more subjects. And I'll give an example of a school, for example. In 2016, there was a school in Vosloorus which enrolled more learners who were modulated, in matric than those who were doing matric for the first time. That school was able to obtain 96% pass rate. And this is a school which was doing badly before. Before that modulation, they were getting less than 50% pass rate. So I'm saying that these are some of the challenges that we need to face and deal with as activists as well as the department as well. So that at the end of the day, we can be able to have quality results which reflect the actual performance of learners, unlike the current state of affairs where learners are progressed, others are modulated.
No, we'll come back to that progression policy, but also just to rope in Thulaganyo Modisane, who's an educator, author, and speaker. Modisane, welcome to you. Your take on those 2017 IEB results, very impressive by some?
Yes, certainly. I must be honest, I think this is a moment that South Africa has to be proud once again. I mean, if I have to look at the stats according to 2016, from 98.67 all the way to 98.76, I think it's something that slightly we should be proud of, Unfortunately, we find ourselves in a barrier where, of course, we would rather appreciate it if our learners were to do quite better than this. In this case, 100% rate. It's something that one can say that we still have a long way to go. However, I think it's something, once again, we should be proud of. If I have to compare it from the public schools, whereby they would generally go about 76 and all that percent and all that, I think it's really a proud moment that South Africa should actually acknowledge, despite the barrier that there's still improvement that needs to be done.
Now, speaking of a comparison here, Thulaganyo, because many would say the teacher-learner ratio that these schools particularly have could probably be one of those things we can attribute to this type of results, that in most cases in the independent schools you find that there are less children in the classrooms. Could you say we could attribute this type of success to that as well?
Yes, certainly. I think this is also one thing that as a government, they need to look into, I mean, I speak as an educator whereby I am an educator from a public school. I have literally 40 learners in my classroom. Perhaps they could even go more. I mean, there's other public schools where they go more, 50 if I'm not mistaken. Once again, in the private schools where you get it's 20-something and so forth, it does, on the other hand, cause a dilemma, I must be honest. I mean, you have learners in your classroom where, obviously, they don't have the same needs. One is going to struggle from the other. And then once again, you have sort of your strong learners, whereby they need to also keep up with those that are weak. It raises concern, I must be honest. Hence, I'm saying I'm speaking particularly from a perspective of an educator who is in a public school. So I think this is something, once again, I'm enhancing and rather highlighting that the government really needs to look into that. How are we going to work in such situations? Are we really going to continuously just work on this ratio, or are we intending on perhaps reducing the amount, in particular to public schools?
Perhaps just to rope in Chris there from SANCO. As SANCO, your take, we don't want to politicize this success of these students. We all need to be proud of them. They've done well. But you cannot help but be reminded of the great inequality, because there are children that are studying in mud houses today, and some of those private schools cost, at least some of them, 200,000 per annum. So doesn't this not talk about the inequality again, that we could be seeing this success also due to the high price of education in these private schools?
Thanks, man. I think the question of private and public, it will remain until it is being addressed by the department, if not the government itself. We cannot shy away that at the private, of course, the question of ratio, as she has mentioned, is like that. But here we can fold our arms and say, this issue hasn't been answered, therefore we can't do anything. I will suggest that whatever is given, let us utilize it. Whether you like it or not, the ratio can be resolved today. And those who have got access of taking their kids to private school, in many cases are the very same teachers, like she's been saying she's a teacher. If you ask her, where's children schooling, she will tell you that she has taken her to the multiracial or to in private school. So as Africans, we are very used to this kind of situation. It won't help to be complaining. Rather, let's ensure that whatever the department is trying to do, let's assist. And of course, we agree the inequality will be there for as long as we don't have enough operators, as long as we don't have more money allocated to teachers so they can just teach and forget about the rest. I think as SANCO, we are very much concerned about the salary of the teachers that they are getting comparing to the salary at the private school. Because if you don't address that, that will never motivate. If a teacher has got, instead of 1:35 as the ratio, has got 1:50, but they are seated there, is able to teach them as being motivated by the salary, I don't see problem that much.
No, you seem to insist on the remuneration. Hendrik, your take on this? Some would argue that perhaps we need to talk about capacitating some of the teachers in the public schooling system. But here we have they're from SANCO, apologies, they're saying that no, it's a situation of remuneration. They just need to be motivated. It's not a case of them lacking the capacity.
Of course, I think that, private schools have got obviously more.
Mr. Makinita, we seem to have lost you there. Can you hear me? Apologies there. We seem to have lost Mr. Makinita. Thulaganyo, your take on that? The whole argument that teachers in the public schooling system need to be remunerated adequately, as opposed to some that say the argument really is about capacitating them, that they need to be upskilled, they need refresher courses if possible. Well, some of them, not necessarily all. Chris, we seem to have lost Thulaganyo as well. Hopefully we can get them back. Chris, now, perhaps the same question here. You're still emphasizing that it's a remuneration issue, while others maintain that it's about capacity. We need to offer support to teachers in the public schooling system. And the salary is also another issue that needs to be addressed. But at the heart of it is capacity. They need support.
Thank you. I don't think that will be saying we are undermining the credibility of our own universities and colleges. These people have graduated, they've completed their courses, they are fully fledged professional teachers. If you are saying we have to capacitate them, which I don't deny, but the fact of the matter is if you put enough money in a form of remuneration, whoever is teaching at a private school will come to this public school to come and do the same. That cannot be the easy. And I'm telling you that that is the way of undermining our high learning institute credibility if we are saying they lack capacity. What capacity are we talking about? Because these people have graduated same as those who are in the private schools.
And then in terms of infrastructure, though, because some of them can be demoralized to say we're working at these schools, even if we were adequately remunerated, we don't have well-furnished laboratories. There are many issues within those schools. So you think infrastructure is not also another issue?
You see, Nomfundo, let me put it this way. Around that one, I agree with you to say, as much as we are building more new schools, world-class kind of stuff, let us not forget to go back and say, here is Togosa High, here is Orlando High. Let's ensure that we improve the infrastructure and ensure that we bring nearly every resource that is needed for the learners. There I agree. But we cannot fold our arms and say, because here in Sebokeng High, it's forever built that way as left by the apartheid, therefore the learning teach can go smoothly and cannot produce. So my argument is that let us teach. We are from the universities, we are from the colleges where we have trained. I think I must put it, speaking from the perspective of being a teacher, it says where you are given a space, go and do work. In this case, if I'm given a space and the library is a walking distance, I will teach and walk with my kids to the library. If I have to conduct an experiment of some sort and I have to borrow from the next school, I'll do the same and impart knowledge. Rather to say, no, I cannot conduct this experiment because I don't have this.
No, it's an interesting conversation. Just to remind our viewers that it is a call-in show. We actually have Rachel on the phone line. Rachel, a warm welcome to you. Your take on our conversation this evening.
How are you?
I'm good, and you?
I'm very good, thank you. All I want to say is that public school, they will never match the IEB. Because if you check the rural schools, we have teachers. But how can you teach my daughter mathematics using Pedi? It's not going to work because they are not teaching our children with the correct language. I'm saying I'm not proud of my Pedi language or whatsoever. But teaching my daughter biology or agriculture using Pedi language is not going to help that person. Because when she go write exam, that agriculture or biology paper come written in English.
So but then there's this argument, Rachel, at this point that we need to preserve our indigenous languages. We saw just that Constitutional Court ruling where the Chief Justice went on to emphasize that we do actually need to somehow produce or progress our languages and see them a number of people being taught in their mother tongues at some point. So you wouldn't think it's beneficial for people to learn in their mother tongues that they possibly understand better?
It's not going to work because they're going to understand better. When they come, they start looking for a job. There's no way you'll find a job speaking Pedi. It's clear, English or Afrikaans. We're not saying we don't want to learn our language or where we're coming from. We really want to do that. But at school, it's something else. There's no way. I cannot go to Transnet and speak Pedi. Whatever question, it will be with English. When you write a CV, you don't write in Tonga, English. So that term of teaching our kids with their mother's tongue is really killing our children. That's why we'll never ever match the IEB. That is why teachers that are teaching our children with this mother tongue, they're taking their children to multiracial schools. So that's not going to help us. That's the one reason we'll never match the IEB.
No, I hear you, Rachel. Thank you very much for your input. Hendrik Makinita, it seems our conversation is evolving now. It's also bringing in the mother tongue dynamic. Your take, is that why we're seeing less success in the public schooling system, that some children are taught in their mother tongue?
Well, my view is that the public schooling system as a whole needs to be thoroughly looked at. We need change. We need to relook at the curriculum is fine as it is. But the key problem that we have is the implementation of this curriculum that we have within the public schooling system. To start with, the level of commitment of our teachers in public schools cannot be on par with the private sector.
Why is that?
The reason being, there is a lot of, people teachers in the public sector are too much relaxed. For example, you find that unions are also highly involved. A teacher knows very well that it is not easy to lose a job within a government school, because the unions are there to also look after the interests of their members. And once you are there, they know they will work there permanently. So even if a teacher does not go to class for 5 days, he or she knows that his job is covered. There's nothing that will happen to him. Whereas in the private sector, they know...
But Hendrik, apologies, I just have to interject there. It would be remiss of us not to talk about those teachers that are dedicated within the public schooling system, and it would feel unfair if we go on to say that most of them, if they are discouraged, it's just a case of that there's job security there. Wouldn't you say that that would be generalizing, to say that teachers in the public schooling system are not dedicated because they know there's job security?
Well, of course, there are those who are committed within the public schools. But the reality that I'm talking about is that someone has already spoken about overcrowding in our classes, issues of discipline, where parents are also not involved in the education of their children, unlike in the private sector. For example, in a private school, if a learner is late for school, a parent will be informed immediately. They've got systems in place whereby a parent will receive an SMS at 7:30 in the morning or at 8:30 in the morning when the register is marked, to inform the parent that the child is not in the classroom. Whereas in the public school, it's not the case. A learner can spend, some time not attending school. Parents will not know about it on time. So I'm saying that there are many challenges that still need to be resolved in as far as the public education system is concerned. We've spoken about the issues of progression, where government is doing everything to make sure that, they can reach maximum levels of performance. And there are also issues of modulation, where learners do a matric in 2 years. And I think that is a challenge that we also need to look at.
No, an interesting take. Let's just bring in one of our callers, Mkosi from Newcastle. Your take on our conversation this evening following the release of the IEB results?
Yes, hello, and good afternoon to the viewers. My take, I would just like to add on the point about salaries. I don't think salaries is the most important part in terms of comparing private schools and public schools. I am a teacher for one, and I'm sure if you were to increase my salary to 50,000, it wouldn't motivate me that much if there's still overcrowding in classes, right? I mean, a class of 50 learners and one teacher is very difficult to control. So I would say let government rather spend more money in infrastructure and hiring more teachers, so that we as teachers can spend more time actually teaching and focusing on those learners who need our attention. Because with the big class, it's very difficult to do so.
No, an interesting take there, Mkosi from Newcastle. Tulaganyo, your take? That's an educator saying that they also, in terms of that teacher-learner ratio, it is a concern. So no matter their salary, they need to have a number of students that they can control in a classroom.
I have to just give credit to the previous caller. I mean, he put it very, very clear where he says it's not necessarily about the salary. It really boils down to the infrastructure. I think, as he said, he laid it very well, that the government needs to just invest on actually employing enough teachers, but even more so teachers who are excellent with their subject. I mean, we're looking for teachers who will be able to plant a certain knowledge to the learners. So I think he really put it very well. I appreciate the fact that he's speaking as an educator perspective. I mean, I for one also I could clearly just understand where he's coming from. But then also I must just be honest. I also value what you just said, that it's actually not all teachers who are not working. Once again, we stereotype once we say all teachers. Some teachers will work, some teachers will not work, but it's the same as the private sector. I mean, we don't have evidence that are there teachers in the private sectors who are working or who are working or not working. So we just don't have evidence in regards to that.
No, I hear you. A very interesting point there. Well, unfortunately, we have run out of time on this conversation. Thank you to all my guests and all the viewers who partook and all of you at home who just listened to that conversation of us. Well, again, we do celebrate the class of 2017 following the results of the IEB learners. 98.76%. Impressive indeed. More news and updates on the other side, but first let's check in with our weather center.